Yeah, you see the title, everybody's been talking about it. Terry Funk, the funker, if you will, the funkster, if you will, unfortunately passed away at the age of 79 today. And when you want to talk about legends in this business, people that paved the way, for certain, performers of a certain style, for certain companies and promotions to promote themselves, build themselves, off of, certain styles, in this business, basically make a name for themselves in this business. Terry Funk is always going to be one of those names at the top of the list that is the biggest inspiration for wrestlers and promotions even to this day. Because not only was the guy a double, triple tough in-ring grappler, but he also was a brawler. This man knew how to basically get hardcore even before hardcore as a word and a term for a style of wrestling was cool. I mean, him, along with the likes of Abdullah the Butcher, the original Sheik, these were people that they knew, that when the time was needed and everything, especially when it came to, concluding a feud, a program with somebody, they knew that a specific kind of match would be needed. And most of the time, that match would be hardcore. It would be a street fight. It would be a brawl. It would be no DQ, no count out, steel cage, chicken wire steel cage, you name it. They knew that if they knew that if they had to, they would compete. They would willingly compete in that kind of a matchup, and that's what Terry Funk did. He willingly adjusted himself from not just being an in-ring grappler, a student of the game, if you will, but he basically also adjusted himself to being, a pure six brawler, as they call it. Someone that, as I said, could get down and dirty with the best of them. And there are various examples throughout his career of him doing this. You take a look when he was in the NWA in the 80s, in his feud with Ric Flair, and in that famous I Quit match that he had. If you look back even further than that, to the empty arena match he had with Jerry Lawler. Again, this guy knew how to compete in the ring as a wrestler, but also as a fighter, as a brawler. I mean, the style you would see throughout those generations, throughout those years and decades, he even applied it. He even applied it basically when he would be in the ring with the likes of a Hulk Hogan, or he'd be in the ring with the likes of a Sting. He would essentially, use the style to where you wouldn't know whether or not he was going to wrestle you or fight you. He would have this style to where he would be a maniac. He would basically come off as a maniac that, essentially, you didn't know was on your side or against you. You didn't know that. He was that kind of a guy. But like I said, he's also known for that brawling style being the inspiration for companies like ECW, CZW, GCW. He's known for bringing that kind of style of wrestling, into the forefront, and to be basically the heart and the soul of these companies. And now you see companies like AEW, MLW, Impact, even New Japan is taking elements of that hardcore style that the likes of Terry Funk helped put on the map, and implying it into some of their matches, into some of their storylines, and allowing the wrestlers, men and women, if they are willing to do so, to put their bodies through that, because that's what Terry Funk would do. You know, he's also one of those guys that, like I said, is known for his most hardcore of matches, you know, around the country. I mentioned the I Quit match with Ric Flair in the NWA WCW. He had a rematch of sorts a decade or so later, you know, a little over a decade later with Flair at Super Brawl. You know, this guy, you know, basically knew how to bring the best out of those that weren't traditionally hardcore competitors. I mean, you take a look at what he did at One Night Stand in 2006. You know, we saw that Mick Foley brought the best out of Edge when it came, you know, when it came to being a hardcore wrestler. You know, doing things that, you know, traditionally he would not do. Because even though Edge was known for his tables, ladders, and chairs, you know, to compete at the hardcore level that Foley did, you know, put him on the map. But I truly believe that Terry Funk, you know, competing against him at One Night Stand solidified it. It really did. It solidified, you know, Edge as a main event guy, in my opinion. And then, of course, his matches with Mick Foley as Cactus Jack are legendary. I mean, you go here on YouTube or anywhere, and you will get, believe it or not, audio commentary accompanying the match between Terry Funk and Cactus Jack in IWA Japan in the King of the Deathmatch tournament. You know, people basically look at what GCW does with the light tubes and all that, and the same with Impact at times, you know, with the barbed wire and the hardcoreness and everything. You know, even the little explosions, you know, exploding barbed wire deathmatch, or in fact, he was part of that. He was part of that. I mean, let's not forget, a couple years ago when we had that match between Omega and Moxley, that was done as a tribute to the match between Onita and Terry Funk. You know, some people will say that they're not accustomed to those kind of matches, but it was a guy like Terry Funk that helped bring those matches into the forefront. It was. I mean, if it wasn't for someone like Terry Funk doing that, I don't think any promotions would even dare to even have extreme hardcore styles like they do now. They wouldn't. They wouldn't allow people to use light tubes. They wouldn't allow people to have exploding barbed wire matches or stadium stampedes or, anarchy in the arena or anything like that. Or Monsters Ball. If it wasn't for the likes of Terry Funk being who he was, having the notoriety he did at that time, bringing it into the forefront. And who can forget his barbed wire match with Sabu at Born to be Wired? Days before the winner of that match was to face Shane Douglas for the ECW World Championship. Who can forget that? Who can forget that? Who can forget him even getting in the face of The Undertaker during the 1998 King of the Ring Hell in the Cell and getting chokeslammed out of his shoes? I mean, this guy has had moments after moments and has been an innovator and an inspiration for the styles that we see today. Wrestling, hardcore, you name it, ultraviolet, you name it. And, you know, even though Lex Luger is known in wrestling as a total package, the true total package is Terry Funk. Is someone like Terry Funk, because they knew how to do it all. They knew how to wrestle, they knew how to brawl, they knew how to get ultraviolet when they needed to. They basically were able to bring anything and everything that was needed. And there will never be another like him. There won't be another like him. You remember I remember Vince McMahon said something when they were talking about the passing of Freddie Blassie in WWE Confidential. He said, it's the last vestige of a bygone era. It'll never be repeated. Terry Funk, believe it or not, is, I wouldn't say the last, but basically he was one of the first of a bygone era that helped facilitate the era of ultra violence and hardcore, and basically that mixed hybrid style of wrestling that we know today. So in closing, I have to say my prayers and thoughts are to the Funk family. And Terry Funk, thank you for all the memories you gave us. You were truly one of a kind, and you will be missed. Godspeed. Take care. Take care, and thank you for the memories.